Alright, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for sticking with me. My name is Ninja Chris, and this is yet another Ninja Chris Casts. I do have to apologize, it's been a couple weeks since I've done any casting bit, just because the International 4 tournament, which I was more than happy to be able to attend. So, thank you very much for sticking with me and coming back. I see I got 4 viewers right now. That's actually a good sign for me already, so I'm glad to have you guys. Much appreciated. Anyway, as for right now, I have 3 games up on the list. And let's turn off this. I have 3 games up on the list for us to cast over today. So if you have any other games and we have the audience for it, I would love to hear your recommendations. Otherwise, please let me know what you do like, what you don't like. Let me know in chat, let me know in Twitch or in Reddit. And either way, I would love it if you subscribed and followed me. Otherwise, sit back and enjoy the game. We're going to go ahead and switch over into the match right now. There we go. And right now we have a nice little all-pick suggested over from the Dota 2 Casted section. So going to have a little bit of fun with that. Over on the Radiant side, we have, on Medusa, we have Fap Fap Fap. Lion is being played by Rice Rice Rice. I'm seeing a little bit of a trend here. Zeus in the middle lane is Sad Onion, with Abaddon as Sub Club, and we are still waiting on our 5th pick. Up in the Dire side, we have Unravel on the Invoker. In the middle lane, Weaver. Still waiting for that to be selected. There we go. We have Ash Ketchup on Weaver. Lycan is Amber. Necrophos is Fluttershy. And on the Nyx Assassin, we have Krav. Finally, back in the Radiant side, we have Mirana as Doodoo. Gotta love that name. Anyway, you guys know I like to check out the couriers. Make sure each team has one. These are pub games after all. Not everybody like to actually get the wards, get the courier. So it's always a good thing to double check on that. Anyway, the Lion has picked him up and is going onto the top lane. So hopefully he'll be watching over the, well, it appears to be the Mirana back up in the top lane, who's going to start out with a nice little double damage rune and harass this beautiful little Nyx Assassin, who might just get hit by the arrow and chooses to back away instead, making a nice little play. Back in the bottom lane, we do have the Mirana and the Abaddon not doing a very good job to block the creep camp, whereas the Weaver in the bottom lane actually did a half decent job, so not too bad. At least it's not pulling him underneath the tower too badly. And appropriate warding on both sides. Just checking out the nice little rune setup. We do have the Mirana. Did she throw out another arrow? I believe she did. Either way, the Necrophos doing a great job actually slowing him down, giving a nice little bit of harassment as the DD rune is going to wear out. 50 seconds into the game. Let's take a look over onto the last hits. Good. I did remember the key. It has been a couple of weeks. Once again, thanks for sticking with me. I do appreciate you guys being here. Necrophos continuing to harass as the Lycan starts off with a nice little early stout shield. So, going to be a great little start on their side. Although, I will say, I do expect... Oh, we do have some initiation coming on top of the Necrophos, and it's going to be a potential first blood on top of Fluttershy. Nice little Hex continuing to finish it off, and that's going to be it. The Lion gets the 400 gold as the Nyx Assassin chooses to potentially come and help out against this Zeus, but changes their mind as they return to their solid lanes. Back in the bottom lane, we do have continuing to see the Medusa picking up really not a whole lot early on. I was expecting her to have a little bit more last hits than that, especially with the Abaddon continuing to pick on this only level 2 Weaver. So a very slow start otherwise, especially for the Dire. Where are the levels? I gotta remember all the buttons all over again. There we go. So 2 minutes in, we do have a various set of level 3s, not a bad setup, and unfortunately we do have an Invoker disconnect in the middle lane. That's going to give some great little farm for the Zeus and potentially push back into that middle lane, unless perhaps the Nyx Assassin chooses to replace them in the middle lane. Likewise, back in the bottom lane, we do continue to see some nice little creep camps being pulled back into the lane. Abaddon even picking up, what did they pick up? Some sentries and a ring of protection. So they're going for the early tranquil boots. Great little job pushing in the bottom lane. And overall, just waiting for the Invoker to return to the lane. Somebody is actually watching over that character right now, which doing a great little job managing them. At least they're not going to die, but picking up some experience while they can. And there they go, returning to the lane. Zeus already having his bottle and a nice little illusion rune, so that's going to be some extra pressure upon this Invoker. Let's see if he's going to get spooked out of the lane. Doesn't appear like he will. And this is already a nice little setup. I'm already favoring the Dire side, especially with that Lycan pickup. Very powerful. The Nyx Assassin going to do some great work picking on that nice little Chewy Lion and the Zeus. So not a bad setup for the Dire overall, even though they have lost the early game advantage. Or the early game first blood. Although you can never deny a Mirana. And Mirana's ultimate, the arrow, excuse me, not the ultimate, is going to do a brilliant job, at least when trying to slow down that Lycan. So we'll see what actually happens, especially since I believe it was the Lion who picked up the sentries? Who picked up the sentries? Was it the Nyx Assassin? Okay, so my apologies. It was the Nyx Assassin who was going to be de-warding against themselves. Continuing to push back in the lanes. I am very excited to see, like I was saying, overall what the Dire is going to be capable. They absolutely have the late game advantage here. But it ultimately depends on how well that Nyx Assassin is going to be able to pressure the Zeus back out of the mid lane. And currently, with him only farming, I guess it'll take a little while for him to get up to full strength. Overall, not a whole lot of action going on, especially after that first blood. Nobody really choosing to drop some smokes, initiate upon the enemy, upon their opponents. Nyx Assassin not anywhere near level 6 yet, so it's not as if he can really pressure that Zeus too much. Still, that's going to be their real advantage. They need to get the Lycan up to at least level 6 or so, get him pressuring towers, getting him pressuring Roton, and ultimately forcing the Radiant's hand. If they can get an advantage, there's only so much that Zeus can perform. It's going to rely mainly upon the Medusa. So, still waiting for that early game initiation to hopefully swing the tide back in the favor of the Dire. Once again, while we're waiting for the action to pick up a little bit, thank you for sticking with me, guys. I do really appreciate it. And I hope you're having fun today. We're going to be going on for a total of 3 games at very least, unless we happen to have a bigger crowd by the end of it, which does not normally happen, but we'll see what happens. And either way, just thanks for sticking around, and I hope you're enjoying the show. If there's anything that you think I should be working on or improve on, let me know. I would be glad to hear it in Twitch, or let me know over in Reddit. Whatever works for you guys. I'm just glad you're here. Continuing to see some nice little aggression on the Weaver. Especially now that the Radiant placed a couple of sentry wards to try and catch him out a bit, as well as push him under the tower. That's going to be a little bit of a problem for the Weaver. And it does actually look like he's going to be continuing to push back against that Medusa, so not a bad startup. Not a bad setup for them overall. Invoker actually continuing to push back into the middle lane against the nice little Zeus who was forced back out of lane. Brilliant job by the Invoker. And a nice little smite attempt by the Zeus. But overall, it really didn't do anything to slow anybody down on the Dire side. Especially when it was used against that Weaver. Caught him out of position, but ultimately nothing else out of that. Otherwise, I'm a little surprised we don't see much other initiation coming back out of this Invoker. Not sure what he's not really saving up for. He's only finished off his boots, but little concerned about his late game, or his mid game potential at this point. Although he is going for the nice little haste rune, which is going to stop the Zeus as he continues to gank up toward the top lane. We do see some nice little return initiation on top of the Nyx Assassin, and the Lycan is actually going to be able to not pick off the Lion. And we have the return aggression coming back up from the Zeus until he takes a bit of damage. Very much missed Sunstrike as he's just going to get away. No, Invoker has actually continued to push against this, and this is not a smart move for the Invoker. Especially if I guess nobody else on the Radiant are choosing to return against this, and that's going to be a free kill. So I do take that back. It was very well played by the Invoker, but if anybody, if even one person to return to help out against them on the Radiant side, have a little bit more communication and teamwork, that might have worked out a little better for the Zeus. Nonetheless, that is the initiation we were looking for from the Dire side. So very well played, Invoker. Continuing to see the Lycan build himself up as he is working for that. I believe it's the medallion? See if I remember the build correctly. Partially there. Perhaps getting a soul ring? I would be... I don't know why the Lycan would be picking up a soul ring, but hey, whatever they choose to go for, right? These are pub games after all. And we do see an overly wounded Radiant team right now, even though the Weaver did in fact get picked off. And Lion being disconnected. I'm a little unsure exactly what caused that one. We'll see what exactly happened. Interesting little bit of discussion. A lot of disconnects in this game that normally doesn't occur. As we wait for the rest of the Radiant to continue back into the game. The Lion has reconnected, but unsure why the game is still paused. Must have been going on during the Dota 2 International Finals. Waiting for the last little bit of US West servers to kick back online. There we do. We have a nice little Tranquil Boots being picked up by the Lion. Give him a nice little set of speed. As soon as he hits that level 6, that's going to be very much trouble. Invoker actually getting the pick on the Medusa back in the bottom lane. Very well played. I'm sorry I missed that one. Although we do see some initiation coming back onto the bottom on the top lane for the Radiant side. Oh, I need to get more coffee in me. And continuing to make sure that the lane does not get pulled back. So, very happy to see the Radiant side actually choosing to go ahead and sneak into the jungle. Don't see a lot of that in the pub games. It does tend to be a little bit standard. They'll just walk right under the tower, get picked off, especially with the Nyx Assassin getting... He's got his Impale. No, he's only level 2. And continuing to see disconnects. This is not a good setup. I don't like this game in the least. Either way, the Lycan has indeed finished off there. Vladimir's offering, excuse me. And the arrow does indeed miss. The Doodoo absolutely not getting the much needed kill against the Lycan. I don't know what I was thinking with that soul ring. Now I feel ridiculous. I should have known better. I was even waiting for the Vladimir, but I guess I'm just getting the build incorrect. Either way, waiting back on the bottom lane. It does look like the Weaver does want to initiate on top of the Medusa, and it's ultimately not going to work out after all. Getting stunned, strangely enough, by the Medusa ultimate. Getting her out of that sticky situation. Invoker once again returning to the lane. He's got the kill on that Zeus, but ultimately I just don't think this is going to work in his favor too much longer. Level 8s against one another. You'd think that with the double kill with that Invoker, he'd be up a couple levels, but the pauses are really hurting him hard right now. Bottom lane as the Lion continues to pick onto this Necrophos, and the Mirage is not getting the much needed arrows. That could have been a great little setup of kills for the Radiant side. Now they're forced to run away from the Lycan, who pops an ultimate and chooses to continue backing out. It's not going to do him any good. Good try there, Radiant, though. And let's see if that Invoker actually wants to try for a Sunstrike on top of the Lion. He does try and juke around a little bit, but ultimately still waiting. Zeus pops ultimate and is not going to get any kill. Excuse me, I take that back. What am I thinking? Gets the kills on the Necrophos. Oh boy, I need to wake up. I promise I'm not normally like this. It's what happens when I have about a week and a half of not practicing. Either way, Zeus returns to the bottom lane, and the Necrophos getting picked out of the top lane. And no real tower aggression either way on either team, to be completely honest with you. A little surprised to see that, but both teams doing a great job of keeping the the situation right in the middle of the lane. We have the Nyx Assassin continuing to pick on this Zeus. He chooses not to actually get the kill, and that is going to be in first tower blood for the Dire. Well played for them. Zeus getting out with the skin of his teeth. You'd think I was an amateur or something like that. Maybe I need to go back to casting every single day. Back up on the top lane, Lycan is still remaining level 6, 2/3 of the way through. I am expecting to see him go after the Roshan at maybe level 8, we're thinking. Weaver actually getting the kill back on the Mirana in the bottom lane. Not sure why she was so far out of position, but ultimately it's going to mean a nice little death. And this is the opportunity the Dire need to continue pushing into the bottom lane, especially with the Mirana. She doesn't, or excuse me, Medusa. Mirana. She does have her ultimate back up, but that's pretty much all they have room for. So if the Dire choose to get on top of this very perfectly, do it just right, that'll be a nice little kill at a tower, but the Abaddon does indeed return. So missed opportunity. And furthermore, we do have the Zeus even teleporting back into the lane. So now we have 3 down here. And we have even a little fake attempt on top of the ultimate with the Zeus. Nice little juke with that, spooking everybody back out of the lane. And there comes the ultimate just to spot out the... excuse me, no, I take that back. It was because the Lion was up in the top lane getting the kill on top of the Necrophos. So the Zeus actually popping it for the help of the teammate instead of choosing to spot the Weaver. Boy, I've got a long way to go. Continuing to see backup in the top lane as the Mirana continues to push back into the middle lane. The Invoker pressing his ground. Full points and Stun Strike as for right now, as well as Cold Snap. So we do have very much a fighting Invoker at the beginning of the game. Zeus coming to flank him. We'll see if he actually is able to catch him off guard or not.
Radiant structures are fortified.
Forcing at least a nice little glyph as the Radiant actually get a death on top of them. Lion buys back into the game, frustrated that the Nyx Assassin gets the early pick on him. And starting to appear like it's going to be a mid-game. Oh boy, not by day. Lycan doing exactly what they need to do, pushing back into the top lane. Let's see if this will be an early tower out of it. Lycan sent all the wolves back into the lane, but he's actually not in it himself. It's a little surprising that they're not looking to push this tower that much further in right now, but we'll see what happens.
Radiant's top tower is under attack.
And we continue to see some nice little aggression. We have 4 of the team members of the Dire side up in this top tower, and that's going to be a nice little tower for them as well. Even a, nope, no deny coming out from the Radiant side. The Lion picking on the wrong players, and the Nyx Assassin barely gets out of that fight. Very well played. Barely jukes out of the way, but the Abaddon is going to get the kill nonetheless. So still a kill for a tower. Not a bad trade for the Dire, especially being essentially a support Nyx Assassin. And we even have an arrow coming back onto the Invoker. This will be a second kill if they can actually pull it off. They're continuing to push back on top of him. Mirana chasing the issue, and she's going to get the kill. Not before he gets the Ghost Walk off, so he gets the play out. Very well played Invoker as the rest of the Radiant are forced to take a couple steps back. The Weaver not ready to give up. Continue to press the matter on top of the Zeus. Get a couple right clicks down. The Lycan continue to press the issue, but ultimately it's not going to mean anything for the Dire. Great attempts coming. We'd hear the Sunstrike, and it's going to hit the Zeus, but it's barely going to keep him alive. So unfortunately, great hit by the Invoker, but just not enough damage. The rest of the Radiant, or the Dire, continuing to press back into the bottom lane. We are up 6-5. Let's take a look at the graphs. We're about 2,000 gold right now, so that was a massive swing, about 2,250 gold swing for the Dire. But the Radiant continue to hold the experience at 2,000 right now. So ultimately, I would have to continue to say that the Dire are in the lead here. The XP is not what's important; it's their fight potential, and that's what they've got with the with the gold. They've got the atoms to fight. That's all they really need right now. The Weaver doing work, the Lycan doing work, the Nyx absolutely doing work. So we'll see what happens. I mean, he's only level 5, but he's shown such a presence.
Radiant's
So
bottom tower is under
can't
attack.
really fault him for that right now. He's continuing to... No, I take that back. I was looking at the Zeus. I was like, that's a very strange build. But hey, it's not what it's not the right hero, so that makes sense anyway. Invoker picking out the middle
Radiant's
tower.
bottom tower has fallen.
Or bottom tower. Tripping over my own words right now. And Invoker picking up a Blink Dagger. Very interesting to see that one. But we'll see if they happen to catch out this the Medusa. Why do I keep calling her Mirana? And just a little bit of overall pressure on top of the Radiant. The Radiant have not gotten a single tower just yet. And this is very concerning. If they actually want to make a comeback into this game and be able to compete with the mid to late game, the mid-game lineup on the Dire side, they're going to have to get some extra towers. They're going to need to make some space and ultimately prevent that Lycan from getting the Roshan. The Weaver continuing to pick on that Mirana, and she's just going to go down. Actually, she's going to continue to get out very closely as the Lion is potentially going to save his life. And the Weaver's just going to take a couple of steps back. Get full health, but he's not giving up just yet. Forcing a Mirana ultimate, and he's not going to get the kill. Waiting for it. We'll see if they just so happen to be in the right position. And is this going to be an arrow attempt? Weaver's going for it. He's going to not get it. He's going to continue to be impaled by that Lion. Just strange plays both sides. Nobody actually getting anything out of this fight just yet. Waiting for the ultimate, impale, barely out of it. There we go. There's the Lycan finally getting the kill. Oh, what a staggered play. Absolutely no fun at all to watch. Lion level 8 finally back in the middle lane. The Nyx is level 6, so we do finally see a full set of ultimates on the board. Even level 11s coming up on the Zeus and the Medusa. So that could mean some great little initiation coming in. Zeus getting the kill on top of the Necrophos, being paired up with the nice little Lion, helping him out with that one. So this is what the Radiant need right now. They need to get individual picks and get a tower out of this, but I don't see them actually getting that final tower of it. Mirana forcing the Lycan's wolves back. But ultimately, this damage is just not what they need right now. Everybody else just taking a nice little reset for the moment. Lycan getting his farm up in the top lane. Necrophos picking up the nice little mechanism. That's going to continue to press the issue for the Dire side. The Radiant, I believe, don't have a mechanism yet. They don't have anything of the matter. All they have is an Abaddon and a couple of Tranquil Boots, which will help, I guess, keep the supports alive as long as they're not in the fights. But ultimately, this is not what the Radiant want. They need to get some fight potential. Arrow coming in, and it's going to not hit anybody. That was close to actually hitting on the Weaver, but did not do so. For the Radiant, they're ready for a fight. They're going to try and see if they can get a pick, but unfortunately, it's just not going to work. Waiting for the nice little attempt on top of the Abaddon, on top of the Nyx Assassin. They might just get the kill, and they're going to do so. Abaddon getting the brilliant little kill. Very well played, Radiant. And the Dire need to just get out of these fights. Their job right now is to deny space, and if they're not going to 5-man up, well, I take that back. The Lycan is doing a great job pushing into the towers and does force a double TP into the top lane, even though the Medusa, I believe it was, who chose to cancel the teleport. Back into the bottom lane, we do have the Lion and the Invoker actually very close. I thought they were ready to fight, but I was wrong. A very strange setup. Nonetheless, with each one of the towers being pressed in, the top and the bottom individually being worked on, Lycan going down to half damage, continue to be cold snap. This could be a very dead Lion, but in turns against the Invoker with the Abaddon pushing in, the Mirana ultimate coming in. The Ghostwalk is not going to save him now, and he's going to potentially drop down to the Abaddon. One more hit, he's going to get it. Very well played, Abaddon. Thank you to the Zeus ultimate securing that kill, as the Weaver is forced to just run away. They drop the dust, but it's not going to catch, as the Lycan just goes back to work on the top lane. No trades are actually helping out the Radiant as of right now. The Necropho's doing a great job with the ultimate, keeping the Medusa out of the game for that much longer. All three lanes getting pushed in, but at the cost of deaths, which is not what the Dire want at this moment. So even though they're completely spread out, they're getting the kills, they're getting the gold, it's not what they wanted. We're about 3,000 gold up, so they have increased in gold, but the XP hasn't swayed either way. So even though I guess the Dire is ultimately getting the better end of this, seeing as how they've improved in gold and the XP have not changed, you would say this is in the Dire's favor, but ultimately you don't want this to continue on. Otherwise, all of the advantage that they've been working on is going to completely go to waste. Invoker and Lycan continuing to push in the top lane, while the Weaver solo pushes the bottom lane, and middle lane continues to be just pressed against the Dire. We have all four of the Radiant continuing to push back in toward the middle lane in one form or another. Ultimately, the Lycans will scaring them back, but this is the only tower that they really have any attention on right now. And I don't know if that's the right way to go. I think the Radiant right now need to be continuing to sneak around and punish the Rat Dota coming from the Dire side, while the Dire just need to continue playing this Rat Dota. If they can group up 3-2 in the lanes and continue to use their escape mechanisms to get out of these fights, that's going to be a great little setup. And we do have the Mirana ultimate being popped, continuing to actually potentially pick on this Weaver. They force the dust on top of him. Here comes the Lion Hex. They're going to continue picking on him. The Invoker is going to be coming into the game, but a little too late as the Lion zaps him with the finger. And that's exactly the pick-off potential that the Radiant were looking for right now. We're still about 4 grand actually looking toward the gold graph right now toward the Dire. But even with all these deaths, the Radiant just don't seem to be making the headway that they need out of this. Or, not the deaths, the kills. So, waiting for the last opportunity, or the next opportunity for the Radiant to actually continue getting towers and whatever they can, but they're, even with the kills up right now, they are running out of options. As soon as they start losing these tier 2s, they're all going to crumble at the same time, and it's going to be very tough for them to get back into this game. Mirana Arrow coming in and is going to miss absolutely everything, giving nothing but vision of the Forged Spirits coming out from the Invoker. So, nice little farmed gold for the Dire, or for the Radiant, but otherwise, nothing too crazy. Mid lane continuing to be pushed back in as the Radiant looking for a pick from the Dire. They did have 3, but they're going to be sneaky and just take a couple steps back out. And that's really all the Dire are looking for right now. Everything's getting pressured, so why really press the issue? The only thing I'm still a little surprised at is the Lycan with a level 12. He's got the Necrobook, he's got the Vladimirs, and he hasn't once gone after the Roshan. That would be an easy 1250 gold for the entire, 1,000 gold for the team. So I am a little surprised at all of that.
Radiant's bottom tower is under attack.
Ultimately, not that big of a deal, but once he gets that nice little juicy Aegis, as well as all that gold, that's going to be go time for the Dire. Potentially get an extra set of tower, maybe even 2 out of it. But we'll see what happens. Lion catching out the Weaver. He potentially wants to blink in. That's going to be a great little setup if he can blink, hex, stun, finger, all of that. Absolutely everything, and just absolutely destroy the Weaver. But it doesn't appear like that's what's going to happen. Weaver smelling something fishy. Going to take a couple steps back. And here comes the Roshan attempt. About time, as 25 minutes into the game, but at least it happened, right? Roshan melting at a mediocre pace. Zeus actually catching out the Weaver and spotting out the Roshan attempt. I don't know if the Radiant are actually going to be able to do anything about this. And it ultimately doesn't matter, as it looks to be... I'm thinking, who's going to pick it up? Nobody knows who's going to pick it up. All right, there we go. Lycan picking up, dropping off the wand. And really didn't cost them anything other than the death of a Weaver, who got more than enough out of it since he farmed up the entire lane for God knows who long. God knows how long. And we even have a Necro book coming in on the Invoker. So tons of push, if not already established, from the Dire side. And not sure exactly what this is going to mean for their fight potential. I mean, they are running Rat Dota. That's what the Radiant have to counter this. They have the sight, they've got the invisibility, they've got the fight potential. And ultimately, once the Radiant, if they can get back on their feet, arrow missed, and it's not even going to catch the Invoker. He blinks out just in time. Very well played. And he finishes his Necro book as a nice little joke. So, Radiant really getting nothing out of these trades. They're doing whatever they can, but nothing is just working in their favor right now. Lycan Wolves continuing to pick on the Abaddon, but ultimately not going to really matter in the least. We have further aggression coming back on top of the Nyx Assassin, who's down to half health, getting blasted, but misses because of the arrow, because of the invisibility, and he's going to drop down to the Nyx Assassin first, strangely enough. Nonetheless, the Medusa getting the final kill, the Abaddon actually getting the kill on that, so 1-for-1 trade. Necrophos getting caught out, and he's going to take a lot of damage now before the Medusa actually forces an ultimate. Necrophos popping ultimate. It's not going to kill off the Medusa. So, a very unfortunate setup there. Not going to keep him out of the game. But the Invoker wants more, and if he's not careful, this Abaddon didn't have an ultimate up. Very unfortunate. As the rest of the Dire are now in a very advantageous position, potentially going to get a second tier 2 out of this, especially with both the Abaddon and the Lion out. No supports to really help initiate. The Medusa ult is down. The Mirana ultimate is down. The Zeus ultimate is down. Nothing to really stop them from absolutely taking this tower. But we don't even see...
structures are fortified.
Still waiting for the aggression coming back up from the Radiant side. Invoker... why?
My magics die with me.
I don't understand. Perhaps just another... Yep, there it is. He just disconnected. So, whatever it is. Either way, we now have a Necro 2 on the Invoker. As the Lycan continues to push in. Choosing to back out as quickly as he can. Mirana ultimate is back up, but they're not going to initiate. Nyx Assassin even checking out the nice little secret shop. Looking for an interesting little pick, but probably not going to find it. Back in the middle lane. We do have a nice little arrow connection. Finally on top of the Necrophos. Lion helping out, but ultimately the kill going to the Abaddon. As the rest of the Radiant, this is exactly what they needed. Now that they have 2 down on the side of the Dire, we'll see if they are actually able to pick up the middle lane. Necrophos even going for the Aghanim Scepter. While the Nyx Assassin just trying to get out of the fight. Brilliant play from the Zeus. Perhaps a little unnecessary. They would have gotten the kill.
Top tower is under attack.
But you take what you can get at this point. Either way,
top tower has fallen.
top tier 1 goes down for the tier 2 goes down on the Radiant side, but finally Dire getting their first tower out of it. Not a great trade as they're going to lose 1.5 towers out of this essentially. Abaddon continuing to get picked on by this Weaver who's going to just continue to back out.
Dire's middle tower is under attack.
Ultimate is down on the Abaddon now, so any damage the Weaver can do to him is going to be permanent. And he's just going to choose to back out. The rest of the Radiant, more than, I wouldn't say happy with their tier 1 tower going being picked off in the middle lane. Or picking on the middle tier 1. You guys know what I mean. We do have another rotation coming in. The Weaver rotating in, the Mirana teleporting in, and the Zeus even coming down to the lane. They want this Weaver who's choosing not to actually leave the lane, and he's going to pay for it, as he should. That was not a smart play. I don't understand. He saw 4 chasing after him. Why go after the creeps? Either way, it doesn't really ultimately matter, as the Invoker is going to push back in the middle lane, and everything is just going back to standard Rat Dota. Lycan picking on the Medusa, pushing back in the middle lane, or the top lane. Right now, this is where I would like to see the aggression coming in on the against the Radiant side. If they can get the top, if they can continue to push in the top lane, if they can get the tier 2 mid lane, that's 2 full lanes of aggression, and that's exactly what the Dire have been doing with their massive amounts of split push right now. The more they can continue to pick on 2 lanes at a time, I mean, yeah, they're going to do a great. It's going to be absolutely advantageous in their position right now to take a top and a bot and just completely separate the Radiant. But right now, it's more important to actually get that initiation and have that space made. Nyx Assassin getting the kill on the Lion, absolutely not what the Radiant need right now to lose such massive damage, even if he is a support. Lycan's Aegis is going to go down about 30 seconds from now, so they need to make something of it if they can. They're going to potentially choose to play it safe. As the Abaddon's taking a bunch of damage, he's going to pop his ultimate early and pull himself right back up to full health. Zeus even getting the kill on the Weaver. So 1-for-1 trade here in the middle lane is the Invoker, the Necrophos choosing to ultimate on top of the Abaddon, not going to actually get the kill, as the Invoker gets the kill on the Abaddon instead. Marauding getting the Necrophos, so continuing to see 1-for-1 trades. Mirana throwing down more and more arrows, but I don't know if this is going to be a good situation for her. She's getting picked. She's with all the damage she's doing, and that's going to miss. Very sorry, Invoker. Good try. Zeus getting the final kill on top of the last hit on top of the Nyx Assassin, and they're not done yet. Lion is back in the fight, desperately looking for that juicy Invoker. As the bottom tier 2 does indeed drop. So, continuing to get the optimal circumstance out of the dire situation. Pushing in 2 lanes. And continuing to show it off exactly what we were looking for earlier. We have plenty of fight potential coming in for the Radiant, as shown by their 19 to 11 kills. And 2,500 gold. Over about 7,500 XP coming in for the Radiant. So they're absolutely pushing their advantage right now. But if they don't get something out of this very soon to help equalize all of the pressure that the Dire are pushing upon them, this is not going to work in their favor. The game is just going to crumble underneath their feet. Lycan continuing to pick on top of the Medusa, and really not a whole lot else going on right now. Only thing notable right now was the Abaddon finally picking up the mechanism. Desperately needed for when they choose to team fight as 5, as the Radiant are going to get the pick on top of the Weaver. Brilliant job. A little too much being nuked on top of him, but a kill is a kill is a kill. The Radiant need this chance. They're going to keep pushing in. The Mirana is going to teleport out and continue to aggro against this top tier 1. They need towers, not even necessarily for the gold. They've got the fight potential, but Lycan just continuing to push back in the bottom lane. And this, I'm not going to say it's a dead tier 3, but it is taking a lot of damage. I take that back. But ultimately, drops down to 1/3 of its health. Back up in the middle lane, we do continue to see some pushing coming back in against the Medusa, who does pop ultimate to get out of the situation. Mid tier 2 down to 1/3 of its health. And still waiting for the Roshan. We've only got about 2 minutes until he comes back up. Invoker doing a little bit of scouting, but not going to find anything whatsoever. Not a whole lot else going on. Everybody just waiting for that potential pick going on. But the Radiant not pressing their, I hesitate to say advantage, but they need to get some picks right now if they want to stop the aggression coming in from the Dire. That's really their only chance, especially if they can get the Invoker, the Weaver, the Lycan. Gosh, there's so many choices. They just need to get 1, maybe 2 if they can get it. Nyx catching somebody. He wants to go in, see if he can catch this Lion. They're going to do so, and that's one very out of position Lion. Not what the Radiant needed. They wanted to get a find. They wanted to get a kill, but there's just too much invisibility on the Dire side. They need to be getting more dust. They need to get more sentries. A gem would be great for them right now, but unfortunately none of them are tanky enough to actually survive holding on to it. So they're going to continue to push in this bottom lane, and that could potentially be a nice little dead tier 3.
Radiant structures are fortified.
The glyph being popped on the Radiant side, so not a whole lot of damage actually being done to the tier 3, as the Radiant are forced to take the Dire are forced to take a step back out. Weaver, strangely enough, not actually finishing off his Lincoln Sphere.
Dire's top tower is
Little
under
surprised. As the split potential is real on the Dire side, they're continuing to push in, and that's going to be a dead tier 3. As they're not done yet, they're going to continue pushing in to see if they can work on this melee Rax. The mechanism is popped on the Dire side, or the Radiant side, but unfortunately it's just not going to be enough damage. Lycan does get out of it, ever so close. That was very close on the Radiant side. Nonetheless, Invoker's going to go down and
Enough.
force the Dire
Radiant's
back.
middle tower is under attack.
Killing spree.
Mirana getting the kill on top of the Necrophos. Very smart play there. Very sorry I missed that one. Very.
I'm in your debt.
Still waiting for some extra aggression coming back in from the Dire side. Even though they have lost 2, they've done a great job pressuring the towers. Barracks continue to rise back up. And Medusa getting whatever farm she can. She's up 4K on the gold. Not sure what she's saving up for other than potentially a buyback. Lycan get a catcher out of position
Dire's middle tower
very
is under
shortly.
attack.
Nope, there are the wolves. So she is caught and forced to potentially pop an ultimate if she's not careful. There she goes. She's going to pop it, and she's even going to be forced to try and TP out. It's not going to do any good. And that's going to indeed be a missed ultimate coming in from the Invoker as the Medusa drops to the Weaver. Arrow
The needle through your eyes.
getting out of the way of that one as the rest of the Dire are not ready to give up the fight. They're going to continue pushing on top of the line. Is going to blink you right out of the fight. And not a whole lot else is going on. We do have the Zeus back in the middle and continuing to pressure against the middle lane. Arrow not going to hit at anybody as the rest of the Dire are going to push in both the middle and the top lanes. Once again, thanks for sticking with me, guys. My name is Ninja Chris. This is yet another Ninja Chris cast. We've got another 2 games coming up after this one, so I'd love to see if you want to stick with me for a while, have some fun. If you have any comments or questions, please let me know on Twitch. I do have it open on my side right over here. Likewise, you can always let me know on Reddit. And if you enjoy what I'm doing, I would love it if you would follow me. Hit the little subscribe button down below. And either way, thanks for sticking around and having some fun. Further aggression on top of the Invoker, force the mechanism pop as the Zeus is going to get the kill on top of that and continue to push the Dire back out there, running for their lives. Even with all the creeps that they've got, the nice little Necrobooks and the Lycan, it's not going to do them any good in this fight. The Dire just not getting anything out of this, and it's exactly what the Radiant need. They still may be behind in the gold, but ultimately they're just absolutely taken off in the XP, and I do fear for the Dire at this point of the game. They need to get an early set of, I shouldn't say early, they need to get racks soon on something just to help continue to pressure and whenever they get a couple of picks off. Because it's obvious, like what we were talking about earlier, the Radiant have got more than enough, they've got all the experience, they've got all the fight potential, and the Dire just don't really have any of it. They have the split. They're playing so much rat Dota, and if they can't capitalize on that very soon, it's not going to work in their favor. And it will very soon potentially be their downfall. That being said, the Radiant haven't left their base in a long while. They just don't have an opportunity. Anytime they ever step out, especially back up here when the Mirana was, or the Medusa, why do I keep doing that? The Medusa actually going up to pick on the Ancients, she gets picked off by multiple on the Dire. And the Lion continuing to pick on top of this nice little Weaver who's going to get out. Excuse me. Chrysalis actually being picked up on the Weaver. And finally did get the Lincoln Sphere. I did miss when that got picked up. And furthermore, we do have our second Roshan being taken out. Potentially going to go right back onto the Lycan. Yeah, absolutely. Especially with the Nyx Assassin 6 slotted. Weaver's not ready to give up the chase and continuing to force the Mirana out.
Fallen to the Dire.
2,000 gold and they're swaying in the Dire's favor still. But XP has even gone up to 12k at this point. So even with all of the creeps being pushed right into their middle lane, it's just gold and just XP. And they need to get a set of racks. They need to reduce the gold coming into the Radiant side. They need to reduce the amount of XP coming into the lane. And they have the Radiant continuing to push against this Weaver. Excuse me. No, it was the Necros that drops. I thought it was the Weaver down here. My mistake. No, I was like, he's in the top lane. Either way, the Radiant just continued to do a great job in just picking off the rest of the Dire. The Dire have not once team fight, even fully. Weaver has always been up here in the top lane with the rest of the Radiant, or the rest of the Dire pushing in the bottom lane. And they'll get something out of it each time, but if they want to secure a set of racks, they need to team fight together. They need to take advantage of the Aegis that they have and just commit to something. Skadi coming in on top of the Medusa and continuing to push on top of the team fight potential that they've got. And I am officially out of coffee. Weaver got to pick on this Mirana ever so slightly, doing some nice little picks on her, continuing to Sakuchi in. She's gonna go down to half health, but I don't think this is gonna be a dead Mirana. She doesn't have her ultimate, but nonetheless, the rest of the Radiant, the Lion coming in to help out, and Hex incoming, as well as there goes the Lincoln Sphere, and that is one dead Weaver. The Mirana continuing, actually popping BKB, and is going to continue pressing the issue, going to get the Nyx Assassin as well. This is exactly what the Dire do not want to be doing, as I was talking about. The Dire, if they're going to push anything in, the Radiant are just going to sweep them off the board unless they continue to team fight. That's just not what Rat Dota is meant to accomplish. So, brilliant job coming in for the Radiant. We actually have on the Courier, we've got a point booster, and it's not going to really get spotted out too well by the Lycans Wolves. Necrophos even finishing off a hood. I do believe that's going to be working on a pipe. As that goes into a... not the Mirana. Going to hit a creep with the Mirana arrow, unfortunately, as it does mean the rest of the Dire are going to have plenty of opportunity to take a step back out of this. The rest of the Dire just continuing to push back in the lanes and do exactly what has not worked for them in the past. The Lycan at least getting some nice little aggression back out of this, and the Lion getting close, I would have to say, toward, an Aghanim Scepter. That was what he wants to work on right now, but ultimately I don't know if that's the right pick, because they don't really have much of a way to group up the Dire. So, either way, whatever happens, Mirana continuing to push back in the lane as the Lycan spots her out. Let's see if he actually wants to go in on this. Might be a very dead Mirana, or at very least force that ultimate to be popped. And she's going to pop her Mantis style. Zeus actually getting the kill on top of the Weaver back in the middle lane. As back up in the top lane, we do have the aggression coming back in the Mirana. It is not going to force ultimate. And in fact, the Lycan is going to take a bunch of damage from all of the Mantis style. The Lion does indeed finish the Aghanim Scepter once and for all. Back up in the top lane, we actually have a potentially dead Mirana. She's going to TP out, force a BKB pop, and she is down to 6-second duration at this point. So, starting to wear low, even with her fight potential coming in. The Radiant are making the mistake of spreading out and trying to get whatever gold and XP they can out of this. The gold is actually just swung back in the favor of the Radiant for the, I wouldn't say first time all game, for the majority of the game. Nonetheless, the Radiant are absolutely getting, what's the word? What's the word I'm looking for right now? They're gaining the strength and momentum that they need to actually push back against the Dire. They've already shown it back up here with the bottom lane, or with the upper ground in their own base. They'll get a couple of kills. Lycan Wolves actually just doing nothing but scouting, but that's really all the Dire can do at this point. Even with the Lycan, does he still have the Aegis? He does, but it's only going to be back up for one more minute. The Radiant desperately needing to get some extra picks, not going to get the Weaver. And unfortunately, spotting out all 5 of the Radiant in the middle lane. That's going to give the Nyx Assassin and the Lycan more than enough opportunity to push their lanes, while the Weaver gets spotted and has dust popped upon him. Hex down, and that's a dead Weaver. out for 70 seconds as the Radiant scramble to get back down to the bottom and the top lanes. Lycan doing some brilliant work, forcing a glyph pop.
Structures are fortified.
And whether that was intentional or not, it ultimately does help out as the first set of racks do drop for the Dire side. Actually, this might not be... It's going to be close, but it's not going to go down 75 health. Very close. A great try, Lycan, but not great enough, unfortunately. Aegis going to be removed from the Lycan, choosing not to press the issue. If only he would have actually had maybe a moment more. I would have figured personally that it would have been worth using the Aegis to secure that the melee barracks in the bottom lane. As the rest of the Dire, they're all grouping up in the bottom lane, but strangely all the way back. Nonetheless, everybody just taking a couple of casual steps back. Nothing actually important going on right now. Waiting for the Dire to potentially step out of the lane, the base, and see if they can get a couple more kills. They're up 1,000 gold. Look at the swing. It's gone 3,000 in their favor. The XP just continuing to spiral and out of control. We're near 20,000 XP. Let's even take a look at the levels real quick. And you wouldn't see it, but I guess just because of how the 4 of the top 5 heroes on the side of the Radiant are upon the top of the game right now. Medusa getting a massive amount of XP of last hits, even rivaling the Lycan of all characters. Continuing to pick on the Medusa. Here comes the fight we were just talking about. The ultimate being forced as by both sides. The Lycan being forced to retreat as well. Lion even stepping into the fight as well. Nyx Assassin. More important action actually coming on the bottom lane as the Lion gets the kill on top of the Necros. And there goes the final barracks on the bottom lane. They both swapped. And nobody actually getting the better side of this, unfortunately. Mirana pushing in the bottom lane while the creeps just kind of switched and went to the bottom barracks and stopped that lane. Zeus getting kills on the Nyx Assassin. We're going to skip the Mirana pressing in the lane just to see if we can actually get some kills out of this. Weaver actually getting picked on a little bit by the rest of the Radiant side. Sorry about missing all those deaths. I actually kind of figured the fight potential was coming back up here, and the reverse fight potential by the Mirana. She's forced to run away. She might even pop ultimate. No, she's going to stun on top of the Weaver, and she's going to pop her BKB and continue to pick on this. Nope, she's just going to laugh and teleport right back home again. So she does get the tier 2, and she does force the Dire to understand what the true meaning of Rat Dota is. Interesting little amount of space coming back from the Radiant. They do get the tier 2 out of it. They do get some great little pressure applied to the tower. But ultimately, this is where the majority of the strength is on the Dire side. They don't really have to worry about too much other than just pushing this top lane. And whenever they want to take a fight, if the Radiant ever step out of the base, there goes Arax. It's as simple as that. They've got the Weaver pushing whenever they want to. They've got the Lycan pressing whenever they want to. The Nyx is always sniping for those kills. So ultimately, unless the Radiant choose to 5-man and get lucky to get a kill or 2, it's really Dire's game right now. Even with all the golden XP in the side of the Radiant. There goes the Invoker, and he's going to drop. Very well played, Radiant. That's exactly the kill we were looking for, as they're going to continue to push to the top in the middle lane now. Doesn't matter, while the entire mass strength of the Dire pushing in the lane. Look at that creep wave. It's just going to barrel home. As like just the same, we have the Lycan pushing in the top lane. Radiant need to make something out of this, or there we go. The Lion actually going to go ahead and TP home. Are we going to see the finger? We do see the finger. Look at all those creeps. Jungling Lion, right? I think not. Either way, the Lion pushing back in the top lane. It doesn't matter what the Radiant do. They're going to have a very difficult situation. We do have the Aegis and the Cheese now being picked up. Zeus picking up the Aegis. And the Abaddon picking up the Cheese for once. So that's going to... Oh boy, so many lives on the side of the Dire. So ultimately still waiting to see exactly what's going to happen out of this. The Radiant still want to get more picks, but it doesn't really matter. Unless they get a Lycan, it's not going to help them out too much. Looking for the Medusa. This might just be what the Dire are looking for. They're going to start working on the Medusa. The ultimates are going to be popped. There we go. As we're waiting for the Weaver, who's just going to continue to be slowed down and picked off. Doesn't matter. The rest of the Radiant more than happy to jump into the fight. They're going to pick on this Weaver. They don't have dust or any weight. Actually, they catch him. Double ultimates coming out from the Zeus. Who's going to get the kill on top of the Lycan. It's exactly what they desperately needed. 2 down on the side of the Dire as they're going to continue picking on him. The Weaver actually dropping low. Invoker desperately getting out of that fight as best as they can. This is exactly what the Radiant need. They needed to get rid of that Lycan once and for all. The Weaver being the only other power, or the only rat pusher not taken out of this fight. And the Radiant need to press their advantage right now. If they don't get at least a tier 2 out of this, it's going to cause further problems down the line. They've got 26 seconds to do so. Invoker continuing to be aggravating, but the Zeus doesn't have any mana either way. They need to get a tier 2 out of this. As the Abaddon continues to get, or excuse me, Necrophos continues to get picked on. He's going to, here we go. Abaddon getting the kill on top of that, pushing back in the middle tier 2, dropping it down. And there's really nothing that the Radiant can, or the Dire can do at this point. They're just going to continue pressing in. They've got 15 seconds until the Lycan returns to the fight. 60 seconds for the... Actually, we have a buyback coming in from the Necrophos. It's on. We continue to see fighting on top of the Medusa. Is going to take a ton of damage from the Nyx Assassin. Being picked on. Necrophos forcing the Zeus. The Zeus Aegis being popped. There goes the tier 3. Actually, it hasn't been picked on just yet. We need one more right click. The Moose... There we go. We actually have double towers being dropped back down. Very well played on the side of the Radiant. They're ready to keep fighting. There goes the Zeus picking on the Nyx Assassin, who gets the Medusa first. And everybody being forced to just take a couple of steps back. I was looking for the Sunflare, and it's going to miss absolutely everybody on the side of the Dire. On the side of the Radiant. What a fight. Radiant getting more than they possibly needed out of this. 16,000 gold in their favor. 30,000 XP. If that doesn't scream fight potential, I don't know what does. Again, the Dire are absolutely doing... Their Rat Dota potential is failing. This is exactly what we were looking for. They're down 20 kills. And the Dire have, or the Radiant have done something not even the Rat Dota from the Dire side could accomplish. They've taken out 2 sets of tier 3s. And strangely enough, we have completely forgotten about the Courier doing a nice little job watching over. Medusa buying back into the game. Dire need to get something out of this for that return. Medusa, after she's bought back in, returning to the middle lane, as the Dire really don't have much, nothing more than a standoff. Bottom and the mid continue to be pressed. Meatball doing whatever it can just to push back the creeps. Oh, my voice is killing me right now. Back in the bottom lane, we do have the Boots of Travel being popped on... Who did that? Was that the Zeus? Zeus's boots? I don't remember who. I didn't catch who has the boots.
Dire's top tower is under attack.
Okay, so it is the Lycan who's going to return to the top lane and stop the tier 2 top from dropping down. Mirana doing some great work pushing back in that top lane, forcing the Rat Dota potential to return. Weaver once again getting caught out of position. And just got to drop down to the Zeus. Surprisingly didn't pop the time lapse just to return back up to that full health. That's the way you need to counter that Zeus. And he's not choosing to do it. The Lycan pushing back in the middle lane. The rest of the Radiant pushing in the middle. Lycan at the top lane. Medusa and Zeus in the middle lane. And we do... just not a whole lot else going on. The rest of the Radiant actually picking on top of the Necrophos. They're going to get the kill. And it's going to go down to the Mirana. Brady absolutely just making the right plays at this point. The Dire are splitting up. They're trying their Rat Dota, and they're just choosing not to teamfight because they can't. They're so far behind at this point. Closer to 20,000, close to 20,000 gold, and over 30,000 XP in their favor right now. I don't know what the Radiant are waiting for. If they can push in the mid lane, take a set of racks, especially with 2 on the Dire down. This is their opportunity. The Lycan, I mean, he's got the boots of travel, but he's so far behind in comparison in the map to where the Radiant are pushing in. So, waiting for this potential to push in and maybe even get a set of racks out of this. Radiant choosing not to press the issue. Going to a 56-minute match. Mirana pushing in the bottom lane and going to get spotted out by the Nyx Assassin, who still does not have a Dagon. Mirana picking up the boots of travel once and for all. Actually going to continue to show what the true meaning of Rat Dota is. And overall, we just have the Dire just doing nothing but continuing to push back up the lanes as best as they can. Nothing too spectacular going on. The Roshan not going to return up for about another minute and 10 seconds. As we do see a nice little Eul's being picked up on the Nyx Assassin, strangely. I don't know. I guess they just need to they need disable right now, but I don't think that's what they want. They need to get kills. Mirana Arrow going to completely whiff on top of the Weaver. As the Nyx Assassin just continuing to spot out. Well, I guess he was on the upper ground. He's not going to pick on anybody. Here comes the Eul's. 4 on the Radiant side. This is what they're looking for right now. Forcing the Medusa to come back and slow down the Lycan while the rest of the Radiant push in the middle lane. Picking on these melee barracks with nothing more than a... gosh, why do words keep evading me? I'm trying to do it without looking. The Mantis style. Pushing everybody back. And here we go, right on top of the nice little Lycan. He's going to get blown up. This is what the Radiant needed. This very well may be the first set of racks for the Radiant. Pushing in the bottom, the top lane as best as they can. Maybe even finish off that tier 2 instead while the Invoker desperately pushes down the middle lane. Weaver pushing in the middle lane as well. This will easily be a tier 2 out of this.
Dire's top tower is under attack.
Still waiting for some... Both teams just playing this very slowly. Actually, no, I take that back. We do have the Zeus being picked on by the Invoker and the Nyx Assassin. It doesn't matter. He's going to get out, and he's going to get picked off. No, he's going to... What plays? We were actually getting the final hit on top of the Zeus. Sorry about the camera. This is being very stubborn.
Dire's top tower is under
Lycan buying back into the game. Doing whatever he can to slow back in. He actually drops down he drops in with the boots of travel, and they desperately need this opportunity pushed in. They're going to not work on the middle racks. They're actually going to work on the tier 4s.
Dire's bottom barracks are under attack.
The rest of the Radiant continuing to push in. That's going to be a dead Weaver.
Are fortified.
Not what they wanted. The Lycan, I'm sorry, but you're still in buyback. You're not going to get any gold out of this. I don't understand why he's doing that, other than maybe to finish off to level 25, but no idea. Either way, with the rest of the Dire or the Radiant continuing just to push back into the middle lane, waiting desperately for that set of racks. We do have the TP coming back in from the Mirana, and we don't even have the Necrophos or the Nyx Assassin back in. At minimum 10 seconds. Still, they need to work on these racks, and they're going to go ahead and do so. Hello, Courier. What's going on, buddy?
Dire's middle barracks has fallen.
I don't know what to say. I'm just kind of having fun with him up here, but whatever. Actually, we need to get back to the fight.
Has fallen.
No, we're going to get another peek of that. Okay, Courier. Whatever you say. Mirana getting the kill on top of the Necrophos.
Bottom barracks
As the
has
rest of the Radiant pick on further racks. They're going to get 2 sets of racks out of this. They're going to continue pushing in. Maybe even get an extra set of... I don't know what the Lycan is doing out of this, but we do have some fountain farming by the rest of the Radiant. As we continue to see the tier 4s dropping out of this. Whatever happened to that Courier? Is it still here?
Dire's
No,
middle
it's going to go
tower is
down.
under attack.
And that's pretty much it for the rest of this first
Dire's
game of
middle
3.
tower has fallen.
Waiting for the final set of tier 4s to go down. Well played, Radiant.
Dire's
Actually, I
middle
take it
tower
back. The
has
Dire are
fallen.
absolutely able to chase out of the rest of the Radiant.
Dire's
Nyx
entrance
Assassin is going to
under
drop,
attack.
as the Zeus is actually going to drop first. And very strange set of fights coming out of this.
Radiant
There we go. About time. Okay. Once again, my name is Ninja Chris. Thank you for sticking around with me. This has been Ninja Chris Cast, checking out over the Reddit games, the Reddit Dota 2 Cast It games. We're going to take a 5-minute break, and we will be back very shortly for games 2 and 3. If you like what I'm doing, my name is... I would love it if you hit the subscribe button, or otherwise, just let me know over on... Let me know on Twitch. I would love it if I could get some feedback from you guys. Once again, like I was saying, my name is Ninja Chris Cast, and I will see you guys back in 5 minutes for games 2 and 3.